Hello, folks. I'm Gary Jaster, and I have a story or two to tell you about back in my early days of my life. Now, back when I was 17, I I went off to join the Navy. Well, when I joined the Navy, everybody, even we had 14 weeks of basic training, and in basic training, everybody wanted everybody else to feel that they was older or had more seniority because they was in for 3 or 4 days longer than the other guy. Matter of fact, some of them we used to have to wash our clothes by hand with a little scrub brush. So some guys they went off and got bleach so they could bleach out their dunger holes, their breeches and shirt, so that it would look like that they were old salts, like they'd been in the Navy for a lot longer, just to impress the other people. Well, anyway, uh, we when I went in the Navy, I took the test, and I imagine they told everybody the exact same thing. Oh, you're the smartest guy that come through here in the last 25 years. We're going to either make an electronic technician out of you or a nuclear power operator. I said, well, man, I never was much for electronics. That settles it. You're a nuclear power operator. Just sign here to stay in another 3 years, and we'll send you off to nuclear power school. And that'll be the only way anybody in the whole United States ever gets a reactor operator license is through the Navy. You can get out, you can name your price. You can get out there and tell them you want $25,000 a year, and and you'll just get snapped right up by one of these reactor people that's building all these reactors. So anyway, I signed my name, and I went 14 weeks of basic training and another 8 weeks or so of machinist mate school up at Great Lakes, Illinois. Then I went off to submarine school up in New London, Connecticut. That seemed like that was about 8 weeks at the time. Well, when we got up to submarine school, they got up on the blackboard and they just made a put X's and everything like this, and we was supposed to learn what all this was, and they would say, well, okay, when you go in the toilet, here's the toilet. You got a big ball valve or flapper valve here that's operated by this big stick here, and you have to open up the hull valve first, and then the backup valve, because if you open the backup valve first and then the hull valve will be throttling the water that's coming in to flush the toilet, and that will wear out this valve, and you can't replace this valve. Where if you open this valve all the way and then you open this one, then this will be the valve that wears out, and then you can close this valve and replace this one. Then this flushes the toilet, and then you pull this handle, and this big ball valve down here opens up, and it goes down into a sanitary tank here. And in the case it don't go down, then you have this air valve right here. You open this valve and you give it a little puff of air, and that'll blow it on down. Well, no problem, So I get on board the submarine, and a feller, he's got no class when you first go on board a submarine. You're a nub or an NQP, an unqualified puke, and and as far as they're concerned, you're just an oxygen breather, and until you're qualified, you're nothing. Well, I had to go to the head. I opened up that door and I looked in there, and I saw this maze of valves in there. And I can remember one time hearing about this World War II German submarine that when they redone their procedure so they could blow their sanitary tank when they was deeper in the water. Anyway, this one guy, he didn't do it right, and the water come back, seawater come back through and got in the battery compartments and caused chlorine in their batteries, and then they had to surface, and they got took out by the enemy airplanes. So anyway, I didn't want any such thing, and I go in there and I see all that maze of valves, and I thought, holy mackerel, I'm not gonna risk it. You know, in submarine school, they never showed you what the pipes looked like or what color the valve handles was or anything. They just drawed lines with X's on, and you were supposed to know all this stuff. Well, anyway, another day goes by, and I got to go a little bit worse, you know. But you know, I didn't want to ask somebody because, you know, it's bad enough to be an unqualified puke, but then, you know, if you'd ask somebody something like that, they'd be razzing you and everything. And, oh man, you went off to submarine school and don't even know how to flush a toilet, you know. So rather than to save the embarrassment, I just didn't go. Well, another day or two went by, and I was in bad shape, you know. I couldn't hardly hold off any longer. I went in there and I looked at that maze of valves, and I thought, oh man, no, maybe we'll go into shore and I can find some safe place on shore to go. Well, anyway, didn't happen. And by the next day, I thought, well, if I ask somebody, you know, I couldn't hold it any longer. And I thought, now if I ask somebody, they're going to laugh at me. Well, what do? You went a whole week without going to the toilet? And then I'd never live that down. So I went in there. Oh man, I filled that hopper right to the brim. You know, and once you're sitting in there, you know, you got about, well, your knees is up against the door when you're sitting on the hopper. And so anyway, I get up and I start turning some of them valves, and some water come in, and I thought, well, yeah, but now you have this big handle that's right alongside the hopper. Well, I turned around and I shoved that handle down. There's a big ball valve about probably about yay big around with a hole in the middle of it like that. Well, when you shove that handle down, that hole lines up, and the sludge is supposed to go down the hole. Well, it didn't go down the hole. Now, I remember they said something about open that little air valve, you know. So anyway, I opened that air valve and I waited a while and nothing happened. But you see, when you flush the toilet, it goes down into this sanitary tank, about a 400-gallon tank. It's down inside the hull, but it vents into the engine room. Well, the guys in the engine room, they don't like the smell of that very well. It's okay when they're running the diesels, but you know, that'll suck the smell through the diesels. But you know, they closed that valve. Little did I realize until later investigation. So anyway, then I'm trying to study out which valves to open and all that. And I thought, well, I'll try and give this flapper valve one more little try here. Well, I guess by that time I had that sanitary tank at about 400 or 500 pounds pressure. So when I opened that valve, you can imagine what happened to all that sludge and toilet paper and stuff that was in the hopper. Yeah, when you push the valve handle down, you see you have to, if you're facing a hopper like this, you have to push it down like this. Well, when you do, your head is right over the hopper. Well, all I can say is a good thing I have my mouth closed. But you know, and it wasn't just a poof, you know, it was boom. Oh man, uh, and then the door was right behind me, you know. So I tried to get the door open, you know, and get over the wash bowls was on the other side. Well, anyway, I opened the door, and by that time there's 18 people standing right out there watching me and laughing and everything. I get over there and turn on the water and try and get some water in my face, you know, just to clean the brown off of it. And had toilet paper hanging off my ears and everything, you know. And old Chief Johnson, you'll hear about him later. Hey man, don't be using all that fresh water. No, you can't use that fresh water. Well, you know, on the submarine, you could take a shower every fourth day, but you had to be at sea for about 2 weeks before you could start using the shower because we had bags of potatoes stacked in the shower. Now, an officer now, I guess they perspired more than a rag hat, but they could take it clean whenever they wanted to, you know. Well, we was allowed one every fourth day, and you was allowed 2 quarts of water, a quart to get wet and a quart to rinse off. Well, we always slept with our clothes on, you know. You might kick your shoes off, but usually you didn't, you know, because if you had to go to battle stations or something, or, you know, especially a new guy, you know, you didn't have your own bunk for a while till enough guys left that you and the new guys was without bunks. You'd have to hot sack it. You'd have to go and crawl in somebody's bunk. And then when they'd get off watch, they'd come, hey, get out of my bunk. And then you go to another guy's bunk, you know. He just got up for watch, and so you figure, well, he's out for 4 hours on watch, so he can sleep in his bunk. And then he'd get off watch, and he'd come back, what are you doing in my bunk? So, but anyway, after a few months on there, I even had my own bunk, and I was lucky because I had a bunk that was right next to the deck on, you know, the bottom bunk, and you know, at first I tried getting in there, and then I tried to reach over and pull the blankets. Well, the bunk was too tight above me, and I couldn't. There's no way I could get the blankets. I thought maybe I could hook them with my toe or something, and you couldn't. There just wasn't enough room. So I'd lay out on the deck there, pull a blanket over me, and then kind of worm my way over into the bunk. But then when the guy get in the bunk above me, then it squished right down against me, and I couldn't get out until he got out. But I was lucky he was in the, you know, the same watch section as me, so we was both out of bed at the same time. We'll show you some pictures of what it looked like, some of them valves, and you can see why it was confusing, you know. And I'll let you figure out if you how would you feel now if you saw that maze of valves after just being a submarine school and they had lines drawn with X's on them. You know, it was supposed to be a valve. And I knew if I would have said something when I first went on the submarine, hey man, they send you off to submarine school, spend all that money, send you there, and you don't even know how to flush a toilet. So anyway, I spent the next 4 or 5 hours in there trying to clean it off all them pipes and valves and everything in the overhead. And then some guy come to me and he said, that happened to me the first time I used it too. He says, let me show you how you use that. And then he showed me how you open up the hull valve and then the backup valve and then open the flapper valve, the ball valve in the bottom, and then you open up the inboard flush valve and the seawater comes in and flushes it. But I learned my lesson about opening that air valve. Never again. They wouldn't put it so polite as to say I was sludge faced. but that's how it was. Okay, folks, if you like this story, you just send money or subscribe or whatever. Okay, we're going to try and put a picture of the head on here so you can see where this flapper valve is located and some of the other valves behind there. That's all for now, folks.